Hello and welcome to the Ad Age's custom webcast sponsored by iSpot. The topic today, what else? The Super Bowl. From benchmarks to big results, Super Bowl creative, audience, and outcomes in sync. I'm John Dioso, editor of Ad Age Studio 30. In a moment, we'll hear from today's guests, and then we'll open the floor to your questions. First up, to participate in the Q&A portion of the webcast, all you have to do is type your question into the Ask a Question text area, and then click the Send button. You may submit questions at any time during the webcast, and we'll address as many as time permits after our presenters' prepared remarks. Joining us today are Sean Muller, the founder and CEO of iSpot, Craig Wood, Senior Director of Client Data Science at iSpot, and Raj Register, Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer, North America at Stellantis. First up, though, we have Sean Muller. Sean, take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, John, and welcome, everybody. Here we are, less than 48 hours after the Super Bowl, and we've got a great show for you guys. We're going to break down all of the action and all of the trends from the game. So everyone's going to walk away from this really knowing quite a bit about the trends that unfolded during the game. Excited to have Craig here on with us, iSpot Senior Director for Data Science, Client Insights, and super excited to have Raj Register, CMO of Stellantis, here with us. I think it was an incredible game for Stellantis. It ended up being the exclusive auto advertiser. Probably didn't plan it that way, but that's what it ended up to be, with some incredible campaigns and the Ram trucks, Goldilocks, and the Jeep owner manual. Jeep was one of my favorite ads from the game, not only because I own a Jeep, but I love Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones. It was just a well-produced spot and very, very inspiring. So today you guys are all going to get a behind-the-scenes look at these campaigns, along with some iSpot analytics on how they did. I personally also enjoyed the Michelob Ultra Hustle and the Coors Light Slow Monday. But what I think doesn't actually really matter. It's really all about the analytics and digging into what resonated with the audiences at large. So today we're going to cover the Super Bowl from all angles. Our ad first focus measurement covers the gamut of creative, audience, and outcomes, and we're going to look at the game from all this perspectives. Of course, this is something we do day in and day out. I always like to say every day is a Super Bowl for us. We always analyze every ad and every show and every platform. From the creative side, for those that are not familiar, we deploy standardized surveys to a minimum of 500 respondents balanced to the general population. We do this for every ad every day, but again, obviously during the Super Bowl as well. We've been doing this consistently in the same way for 15 years. So everything is consistent and benchmarked. So today we'll be looking at a lot of creative insights that include likability, purchase intent, emotion, narrative, attention, verbatims, and a lot of benchmarking. On the audience side, you're going to be the first to see exactly how this game unfolded from an audience perspective. We're going to talk about minute by minute, second by second audience trends. We use a big data panel of over 40 million smart TVs. That allows us to see every ad and verify it and get an exact ad measurement for the audience. It also allows us to see all the streaming, and we're going to break down everything, the linear, the streaming, the Spanish networks, as well as from a household perspective, person perspective, out of home. You will see all the audience trends. They're going to become very, very clear. And then finally, outcomes. So in addition to understanding things like purchase intent, obviously measuring actual actions, it becomes really important. So lift in website and app traffic, lift in sales. And of course, every industry is different. So you can't really sort of apply just one metric universally across the board. You really have to understand the benchmarks and really understanding the why, the reason why outcomes were delivered. And that's why it's so important to bring creative, audience, and outcome together. But with that, let's just jump right into the game. We're going to start with audience highlights. Then we're going to get to creative. And then we're going to get to the main part of the show, which is Raj and Stellantis. So let's get to it. So I'm kind of calling the Super Bowl as the anti-fragmentation moment, which is this rare moment, right? Today's media landscape is so fragmented. Consumers are everywhere. They're on multiple platforms, multiple streaming services. They are on social media. So this is still the one moment where we get a huge audience all at once, and a huge audience it was. In fact, iSpot measurement measured 124.3 average minute audience. So that's how many people. So this is P2 plus viewership on average minute audience throughout the game, 124.3 million viewers. Now, that's slightly down from our last year's number, about 1.75% down from a viewer, from a people perspective. It was actually up from a household perspective. And so some of the trends that I'll cover is a lot of people just simply tune away from the game in the second half, because if you didn't notice, and I assume you did, it wasn't actually the greatest of games, as it really wasn't much of a game, in fact. So with that, let's break down some more of the trends. In terms of in-home viewership for the Super Bowl, 100.1 million average viewers in-home. The way that broke down between the platforms, 80.76 million average minute viewer on the main broadcast on Fox, 15.02 million average minute audience on Tubi. So this was by far the largest streamed Super Bowl, as well as 4.32 million average minute audience for the Spanish networks, for the Telemundo and Fox Deportes. In terms of our out-of-home viewership, iSpot measured 24.2 million average viewers. This is P18 plus out of home. This was down 6.43% from a year ago. And you could see some of the trends during the game. Now, this trend is not unusual for out of home. By the time you get to halftime, it starts to get fairly late on the East Coast, especially, and especially in a game like this where the second half is just simply not interesting at all. You could see the viewership decline quite rapidly. A little bit of a different trend than what we saw during the game itself. So this is quite an interesting chart here of the average minute audience second by second throughout the game. So I'll point out to a couple of interesting trends here. So first, just to orient everybody, the gray chart at the bottom, that's the main Fox broadcast. The kind of greenish teal line above it is the streaming on Tubi. Then you've got Fox Deportes and Telemundo. So you can see audiences building in the first half up until a particular moment in the game, and you'll notice that in the second quarter. And that moment was when Cooper DeJean intercepted the ball and ran it back for a touchdown, which gave Philadelphia a 17-0 lead. And almost at that point, in some respects, the game was almost over at that point. And you can kind of see the audience tank in that game. Conversely, if Kansas City would have scored in their drive, I believe the audience would have kept building from the peak point that you see, and we would have probably had by far a record Super Bowl. The other thing, obviously, Philly dominated the first half. You can see it here. And then you can see the audience after that moment rebuild towards the halftime show. In a typical Super Bowl, the halftime show has the largest audience. In this Super Bowl, the largest audience actually preceded the halftime show. But nevertheless, you can see pretty significant audience here during the halftime show. Now, during the second half, you can see a steady decline in viewership throughout the second half. In fact, Kansas City, I would argue, doesn't even show up to this game till the very end of the third quarter when they finally scored a touchdown when they were down. I believe it was 34-0 or 35-0, right around then. Now, what's interesting is the household viewership actually held steady throughout the second half. So this was more of a factor of people just tuning away from the game while leaving their TV sets on in the second half. Now, what does this mean from an ad perspective? Because as I mentioned earlier, we take an exact measurement of every ad. Not only do we verify that the ad played on the screen, we get an exact measurement. So the ad that had the largest audience was actually the Nike ad. Very, very well timed. In fact, usually right before the halftime show is a good place to be in the Super Bowl, as audiences do tend to build up into the halftime show. So 108.6 million viewers for the Nike ad. This is in-home viewers. Conversely, the lowest audience ad was the Totino's ad towards the end of the game and 90.8 million. And as you can see, it's a 20% difference in the audience from the highest ad to the lowest ad. We're talking about nearly 20 million people viewers. And this is one of the reasons that we always tout ad first, exact ad measurement being super important. Also, to give you guys context, since we'll be diving into the Ram and Jeep spots here, Ram was actually timed really, really well. It ran a little bit before the Nike ad in the second quarter, and also garnered, I think Ram had the third largest audience of any ad in the game. So well-timed, Raj, on the Ram ad. And then Jeep ran in the fourth quarter, as you can see, so had slightly less audience, but of course was still very high impact. So this hopefully helps everybody understand the exact audience. Again, I do think Super Bowl is still such a special moment for us as a society, for advertisers, for everyone to get together. We're still seeing audiences build up for the Super Bowl year over year. And again, it's that one special anti-fragmentation moment where you get so much audience. But when you capture that much audience, you have to nail the creative. You absolutely must nail the creative. And with that, we're going to move on to the creative section of the show. And I'm going to hand it over to our very own Craig here to break down all of the interesting creative trends and top performance from the game. So over to you, Craig.
All right. Thanks a lot, Sean. Let's dive into some of those trends and top performers. So it was another who's who of advertising on Super Bowl Sunday this year, and there is a lot of great content for us to digest. Have a look at these logos. Chances are that this will bring back some fond memories of your favorite ad or ads from the game just 2 days ago. We're going to talk about a bunch of these actually in the next 40 minutes or so, including ads from Pfizer, Doritos, Budweiser, Jeep, and many, many more. Now, although these brands may come and go from year to year, one thing that has remained remarkably consistent over time is the high quality of Super Bowl creative. What we're looking at here is the average likability score of all Super Bowl ads that we've tested dating back to 2010 when we got our start. And we are a syndicated ad testing service, so we test all ads that air nationally. We test about 12,000 ads per year, and we see also the database norm for all ads tested out in the wild. And one thing that stands out is Super Bowl ads consistently exceed advertising norms by a significant margin, and this year was no exception. The big game brings out the best and the brightest from the world of advertising, and 2025 was a good example of that. Let's get down to the ad level now and talk about some of those top performers. Working our way through the likability list, this was the most likable ad among the 66 brand ads that we tested this year. It was Pfizer, and it came out of the gates hot in the very first ad pod in the first quarter of the game. You can see the emo wheel, a bit of an eye test, I suppose, which shows some of the emotions that are spiking for this ad. This ad was all about the brand's commitment to fighting cancer, and that's a message that resonated very effectively with viewers. It registers emotions in heartfelt, powerful, narrative, and many other favorable emotions. And you may be able to see in some of the example verbatim comments that we provided below the emo wheel that there's also a brand halo that comes through, people associating positive things with the brand based on the message that was communicated in this ad. Rounding out the top 5 list of the most likable ads, we have a very interesting list, I think. Here we have 5 ads from 5 different brands, from 5 different industries, with 5 different emotional approaches, which underscores, I think, better than any visual I could come up with, the fact that there are multiple paths to creative success. Working our way through this list, the number 2 most likable ad, just behind Pfizer, is the Saquon Barkley of this year's Advertising Bowl. It was versatile, effective, powerful, and at the end of the day, didn't take itself too seriously. Welcome back, Crash the Super Bowl. You've been missed. Absent since 2016. Underneath the Doritos ad, Budweiser served up a very effective cocktail of nostalgia, storytelling, and Clydesdales in their annual Super Bowl ad, which actually tied with Doritos, but we use brand recall as a tiebreaker in this case. Punching its ticket at number 4 on the overall list was Booking.com, an ad that leaned into the star power of the Muppets and all that they had to offer in a ad that had a little bit of a differentiation message about that particular brand. And rounding out the top 5, we have some other star power in the likeness and name of Eugene Levy and his eyebrows, who talked about Little Caesars. Interesting that the Eugene Levy Little Caesars ad is the only one among the top 5 that really did have celebrity power. I'm going to touch on that once we talk about humor in a little bit. So that brings us to some high-level trends that we wanted to share this year. We put our heads together and kind of think of some big picture trends that are coming together in the Super Bowl every year. What we're going to talk about here is what we're calling the Buy It Now or the Buy Now Bowl. We'll define that in a second. Humor, in particular humor, playing it very safe, not controversial humor, broadly appealing humor. And finally, messages that moved the audience, messages that took a quieter or more contemplative approach to communicating a message related to the brand. So first of all, let's dive into that concept of the Buy It Now Bowl. There have been tectonic shifts in who is advertising on Super Bowl Sunday, going back in particular the last 10 years or so. It wasn't that long ago that the Super Bowl was called the Auto Bowl because of the high percentage of automotive ads that aired on Super Bowl Sunday, upwards of 30 to 40% some 10 to 15 years ago. That is in the rearview mirror now. Automotive has declined to just a single-digit % of advertising share, and of course, other industries have stepped in to fill the void. In particular, food and beverage has almost become a mirror image of the decline in automotive. In particular, we call this the Buy It Now Bowl because these are products that you can purchase the next time you're at the supermarket, the next time you're at a restaurant, or right off your phone for instantaneous gratification. The economics of Super Bowl advertising may have something to do with this. Back in 2010, the average price of a 30-second Super Bowl ad was around $3 million, slightly under $3 million, of course, this year famously touching about $8 million. But it's not a bad thing for automotive to have a lower percentage. For the brands that do step into the fast lane and advertise during the big game, they have exclusivity. As Sean mentioned, in this case, Stellantis was the only automotive advertiser that advertised in the big game, and that 7% was Jeep and Ram. Now, Buy It Now begs the question of how brands are able to effectively build their business through Super Bowl advertising. So we have a standard survey question in the ACE Live survey called Purchase Intent or Visit Intent. And what we've done here is we've ranked the top 8 ads in terms of driving intent to engage with the business, driving visit intent, driving a purchase intent, just generally driving engagement with the brand. And these are gapped to category norms so that they're put on an even footing. And there's a couple interesting patterns that you can tease out of this 8 ad list here. First of all, there's a different advertising approaches that may be apparent. You have ads from brands that are really leaning into what they stand for, what they believe in, who they really are. Ads from the likes of the NFL with their support for female athletes and empowering youngsters. A similar sort of message from Nike, of course, supporting female athletes. Budweiser, with its emphasis on Americana and tradition and storytelling, falls into that category as well. Rocket Mortgage, with their new branding around the American dream and home ownership. And on the flip side, you have more transactional ads that have calls to action, initiation, ads that have value propositions. And into that category, we could probably put T-Mobile with their satellite service that's being launched free for anybody in the first 6 months of this year, as well as Uber Eats with a strong call to action at the end of their ad, and Booking.com, which makes some competitive differentiation arguments in their ad, as well as a call to action. So let's move on to our second theme, and that is all about humor. I teased this up front when I was talking about the 5 most likable ads. Now, this chart might be a little bit of an eyeful as well, but I'll walk you through it. We have noticed that a lot of ads are humorous, but humorous ads are all not created equal. This year, 71% of all Super Bowl ads had a funny emotion that we picked up from our open-ended verbatim. That's a lot. 71% compares to the database norm of 25%. So funny is definitely over-indexing in Super Bowl Sunday, as you would expect. But like I said, not all humor is created alike. So what we've done is we've classified funny ads into 3 different categories based on the amount of negative feedback that we also pick up in the verbatims. So you can see in the footnote that we consider safe humor to be ads that have a funny emotion and 0, 1, or 2 negative emotions that are also pulled in to the overall feedback. Edgy humor, also funny, but has 3 to 4 negative emotions. And polarizing humor, a little bit dangerous, funny, but ads that have 5 or more negative emotions. And the trend is your friend here. It is very clear where brands are headed in terms of their strategy for humor. With the risk of backlash and the cost of Super Bowl advertising quite high, brands are taking no chances, and they are airing funny ads that are broadly appealing, not controversial, not polarizing in any way, likely committee approved and well sanitized. And it does pay off, actually. I'm going to show you the list of the 5 funniest ads of this year, and this is going to probably bring back some good memories. A couple of takeaways here. First of all, note the industry composition. These are all food and beverages brands that landed with the funniest ads this year. So a nice throwback to the buy it now concept that we introduced a few moments ago. There are a few ads that have a lot of celebrity star power here, and this is a classic combination. Hiring celebs with backgrounds in comedy is really a go-to. So Pringles had 4 celebs in it, I believe. Of course, Seal was in the Mountain Dew ad, and then Eugene Levy and his daughter in the Little Caesars ad. Now, the cutoff point, I should point out, to make the top 10 list for the most likable ad is 725. So all of these ads, with the exception of Mountain Dew, did land in the top 10 list of the most likable ads. Mountain Dew is a little bit more targeted. Their ads tend to perform well among males and younger males in particular, so that score is a little bit lower than the other ads on this list. And let's wrap things up in the trend section with shining a light on some of the ads that took a more serious approach. These are the ads that gave people something to think about, that moved them emotionally in directions other than humor. The Super Bowl is a 3.5-hour symphony, which can be very exhausting and energizing. And these are the ads that represent the Adagio movement, where viewers can collectively catch their breath and think about something a little bit more important in the world than snacks or the next play from scrimmage. Some of the brands on this list really did perform quite well. Again, a call out to the likability scores here. Pfizer, we've already talked about, our most likable ad. Budweiser, we've touched on. Rocket Mortgage, we talked about. NFL, we touched on. And finally, Jeep, which we're about to talk about. Incidentally, a 700 likability score in our database puts you at the 90th percentile across the entire database, and in Jeep's case, the 95th percentile in the non-luxury automotive sector. So a good combination here with some serious ads that allowed the viewer to relax and think a little bit. And that is an excellent transition to a tee-up of our Stellantis section. Jeep and Ram were the two ads that were in the big game this year, and they are no strangers to advertising on Super Bowl Sunday. Jeep has been there 12 times since 2010, Ram 4 times, so 16 times collectively over the last 16 years. Both Stellantis sat out the Super Bowl last year and took a knee, but they were back in the game with 2 strong ads this year. And the legacy of Stellantis is quite strong. When we pull together the top 10 likability ads, we often have Stellantis brands on the list, including Groundhog Day 5 years ago, believe it or not. That is our second most likable ad all time in the Super Bowl, just behind Puppy Love from Budweiser. Electric Boogie was another top likable ad from just a couple years ago. And this year's Owner's Manual from Jeep, starring Harrison Ford, of course, was one of the most empowering ads of the year. And likewise, Ram has got some really good showcase ads as well. Built to Serve back in 2018 was extremely well branded. We Will Rock You was a very attention-grabbing ad, what we call arresting. And this year's Goldilocks spot connected quite effectively on purchase intent, which was one of the objectives in the brief. So that brings us to our guest, Raj Register, who will take it from here and walk us through some of the background of the Ram ad.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time today. I know things are quite busy. Super Bowl has had all of us for weeks, working towards things. So I'll start with Ram. And just to give everyone a bit of background, while we landed here and everything looks so clean and simple, at Stellantis, we have a jump ball concept where just because you're the agency of record doesn't necessarily, earn you a pass to do Super Bowl. So we like to collectively get as much creative juices, in the room to really ensure that we get the best idea moving forward. So we really start with a brief. That brief gets cascaded to, all the different agencies. We come back with ideas, and then there are several rounds until we make it to the final round. So for Ram, we decided that we wanted to leverage an opportunity that we have in the marketplace to really talk about not only our vehicles, but the power of choice. So we want people to fall back in love with Stellantis overall, Ram and Jeep specifically. And there's so many choices out there. And right now there's a big, heavy push for BEV. And while that's very important, we also wanted to say, hey, there's a power of choice. Within that choice, we offer other vehicles. We still have ICE, we have hybrid, we have EVs, and we want you to choose the one that is most important for you and your family. So that's how we landed on power of choice for Ram. We decided to go with, something very humorous, leveraging, an old, American story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. We worked with Glenn Powell for a Twisters campaign that we had with him last summer. Not only is he fabulous to work with, his family is fabulous to work with. It just felt like a natural fit to continue, the partnership with him. So we feel like Glenn is very culturally relevant for many audiences. He's not polarizing, for anything outward. And we felt like, that brand consistency that we would have would definitely pay dividends for us. And so we had 3 vehicles, which were the Three Bears. And those were the things that he was, choosing between a Ram Charger, our ARHO for power and performance, or our the Ram 2500 Rebel HD. And so we wanted to have some fun with it. I hope you all enjoy it. So much fun shooting. His niece and nephew are actually the kids that we featured in the ad. So had a little family fun in there, and I hope you all enjoy. So roll the video, please.
Once upon a time, there was a girl with golden locks. You know what? Maybe it was like a rugged, woodsy dude. Yeah, too hard, too soft, This Goldilocks wanted something tastier. Those look just right. First, he drove the Ram 2500 Rebel to pick up some dinner. Tastes like chicken. Next, he took the Ram Charger deep into the woods to flex his artistic muscles. Then he fired up the Ram RHO for a little joyride.
What about the three bears?
This is my story.
But yeah, the bears were there. And they all lived happily ever after.
Awesome. Thank you. So drive your own story, for us, as I mentioned, was, not only just for the day, but we had a collective, 360 marketing campaign that went along with it. I forgot to mention, we did tease this on the Today Show to build the momentum. So it wasn't just about the Super Bowl and day of. We created extensions pre, during, and post, and you'll see several cut downs, CRM, site, and really a collective way of engaging consumers, post spot. So Drive Your Own Story will be our platform for the next 90 days. So thank you.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Raj. That got the blood flowing watching that ad again. That was a pretty action-packed shot. Okay, so I'm going to take you into a few of the analytics that we pulled from the survey. We had these back actually before the big game, as the ad was released early, as you just mentioned. Some of the measures I'll talk about are on the slide here, and others are off the slide, but I'll walk you through them all. So first of all, we heard loud and clear that one of the objectives of this campaign was to tell a good story. This was Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and sure enough, the narrative emotion, which is our proxy for storytelling, did fire a strong signal. In fact, this was the second strongest narrative ad of the Super Bowl in 2025. The highest narrative score, in case you're wondering, was from the Pfizer ad. And last year, for context, the highest narrative score was from Kia, their ad called Perfect 10. Another objective of this ad was to provide humor and entertain the audience. We saw that in the brief. And you can see that there is a funny emo that is firing there. It's at about 8 o'clock on the emo wheel. So the funny score did come through. But often it's not good enough just to be funny. You want the ad to be memorable. All things being equal, a funny ad that's not memorable is not going to stand up to a funny ad that is memorable. And this ad did fire a memorable signal. People in the verbatim said it was a very memorable ad. In fact, it landed at number 5 in the ranks of the most memorable ads of Super Bowl 2025. And again, remember, this is 66 brand ads that we're measuring against. And the most memorable ad of Super Bowl 2025, any guesses? Most of you may have a guess or two. It was David and Dave from Stella Artois, which starred, of course, David Beckham and Matt Damon. The best thing about the ad you can see here is the visuals. I was kind of expecting the characters to be the best thing just because of the star power of the ad, but it did really have a lot of interesting visuals to keep your attention focused throughout. Characters was number 2 in the single best thing. Of course, the danger here when you have strong characters, strong visuals, is not to lose focus on the product itself. So we always look at purchase intent as a measure of whether the ad is effectively building the business for the brand as hoped for. And in this case, purchase intent did land significantly above norm. Top 2 box purchase intent was 48% versus a non-Lux Auto norm of 42%. And just kind of final takeaway here before we move on to the Jeep ad. This ad was really driven by attention. The attention score was 133 points above norm, followed by the likability score 107 points above norm. So what we consider a breakthrough ad with a strong combination of attention and likability. The one component that wasn't as strong as the other was the information score, only 12 points above norm. And we expect tier 1.5 and tier 2 versions of ads featuring these vehicles may fill in the gap with higher information in the future. Anything to add to that, Raj, or would you like to move on to the Jeep ad?
You're spot on, and that's the point of the extensions. The tier 1.5 and tier 2 messaging will help us deliver upon those feature key why buys for our customers. So the idea for Super Bowl is to be disruptive, get the attention, and then allow the rest of the portfolio to help us with the rest of our ecosystem. So yeah, we can move on to Jeep now. Thank you.
Cool, let's do it.
All right. So Jeep, this one was more about the freedom of choice. And what we thought here was we want to inspire Americans across the board. And again, it goes into, making your own choice in life. But we wanted to use someone iconic like Mr. Harrison Ford to really help us really set the stage for bringing back the importance of Jeep, who we are to America, who we are as the most patriotic brand of America, and who we are to our consumers. Over the last year, we canceled Super Bowl. There's been quite a few leadership changes, and people have just wondered what's going on with the brand. And so we thought, instead of having the vehicle be shown in a loud, disruptive way, why don't we create some calm in the midst of the disruption of Super Bowl and tell a more compelling story through the voice of Harrison and through a voice of wisdom. So we have our vehicles there. Really, it was a balance between Harrison, our vehicles, freedom of choice, and what we're calling our owner's manual. It's a creative idea that, again, will extend past Super Bowl on our sites, through our CRM, extensions that we'll have through our storytelling. But it was something that we felt like we really needed to make an ode to America. This one was a bit different. It was more of an in-house creative. And it was written by several team members and led by Olivier Francois. Our team did the directing and producing along with other partners. But this is one where we're calling in-house. So it meant a lot to us as a brand to show up in this way, while also still paying off what we need to deliver from a measurement and analytics standpoint. So excited to show this to you. I hope you all enjoyed it on Super Bowl. And if you didn't, here it is. It's called Owner's Manual.
Longest thing we ever do is live our lives. But life doesn't come with an owner's manual. Might have been nice, huh? But that means we get to write our own stories. Freedom is yes, or no, or maybe. Freedom is for everybody, but it isn't free. It's earned. There are real heroes in the world, but not the ones in the movies. Real heroes are humble. They're not driven by pride. Pride is a terrible driver. Freedom is the roar of one man's engine and the silence of another's. Freedom is the ability to inspire. The most sacred thing in life isn't the path. It's the freedom to choose it. You don't have to be friends with someone to wave at them. We won't always agree on which way to go. But our differences can be our strength. So choose, but choose wisely. Choose what makes you happy. My friends, my family, my work make me happy. This Jeep makes me happy, even though my name is That's my owner's manual. Get out there, write your own.
Anything else to add before I hop into the analytics, Raj?
Yeah, just, this was one, and I didn't say the play on his name at the end, just, for that Easter egg. But it was really nice to have that little, moment at the end to shout that out, have some fun with it while it was serious. That was a way for us to get some excitement, engagement. And that's probably the line that we get called out for most. And for those that may have seen my background, I came from Ford, and my text messages and DMs were blowing up, basically them saying, well played, competition, game on. So very exciting to get the juices flowing like that as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I also noticed the Jeep passing a Ford in one of the scenes.
You noticed that?
Well.
Yep.
Bronco. Okay, good stuff. All right, let's hop into the analytics. So this ad had a little bit of a different brief than the one that we just looked at, but some of the similarities are worth looking at. It was another storytelling ad. It's not co-opting a fairy tale like the Ram ad was. was more about personal reflections and a memoir almost from a timeless Hollywood icon. And the narrative emo did fire, like we saw with Ram, not quite as strong. This was the third highest narrative, so the storytelling is alive and well with this ad. Character is described as timeless in the creative brief that Raj took us through. So I went through the verbatims and looked at what people had to say about Harrison Ford, and some of the adjectives were pretty fun. Some people called him an American legend, a legend, referred to him directly as Indiana Jones, and even Han Solo going back a few years. And that all helped probably drive the nostalgia emotion, which we also saw coming up in the emo wheel. The key components that drove the success of this ad were attention and likability, both gapping well above norm. So again, a very good breakthrough ad. With 2-minute videos, you always have to be a little bit nervous that it's going to come across as boring or it's going to lose audience attention towards the end. But that wasn't the case. We actually have a boring emo. It's in the wheel there. It's up around, I think, 2 o'clock or so. No signal came through for boring despite the 2 minutes of ad length. And the watchability score is another one that we look at. Some people find ads highly attention-grabbing, but don't necessarily want to watch it again. This one, the watchability score, wasn't the strongest score among the components. So my thinking is this might be an ad that's ripe for a cut down. There might be a 60-second version or a 30-second version even that we can look forward to seeing in the months ahead. And final call out here is just on branding. They really did want a favorable association of the Jeep brand to come through in this ad. So a couple ways to look at that. Brand recall, people being able to recognize the brand in an open-ended question at the end of the survey, came in at 85%. The norm is 82%. So that's 3 points above norm. And then if you look at people who type the word Jeep into their open-ended verbatim, the optional open-ended verbatim, 25% of all respondents actually voluntarily use the word Jeep. That's quite high. And among those who did use the word Jeep in their open-ended verbatim, their average ACE score was 655, and that is almost 100 points above the non-lux category norm. So pretty clean bill of health there. Not quite in our top 10 likability list, but pretty darn close with where it landed. Anything to add to the analytics, Raj? I've got a question for you also.
Yeah, I mean, we expected, very similar results, knowing when you have a 2-minute ad, it could lean very far left if we don't do it well. So I think mission accomplished. Also, when I think about brand lift, and the iconic nature of using someone like Harrison Ford, we're seeing that is paying off while not losing, Jeep shout outs from, Al Roker on, Good Morning America. And, there's lots of chatter about it. So this was really more about our brand and highlighting, that part of it. So, we're excited to continue to see the data come through.
Awesome. Good stuff. And you were sharing some cool kind of anecdotes about the production, the LA wildfires and so forth. Can you kind of take folks behind the scenes about what it was like to produce this ad under a kind of a tight, what ended up being a tight time frame?
Yeah, so the Jeep spot, and I've heard, I joined the company in June, and, many people said, well, get ready for Super Bowl because it's going to be intense and it will take lots of time. What I didn't anticipate was being under the duress of the LA fire. So after we got everything lined up with Mr. Ford, got everything through legal, making sure that we could leverage the script in the way that we wanted to, we get everything set and the fires are there. And so when I landed in LA, I could see the fires, in the mountains, and it was pretty intense. And I mean, smoke and debris and wind. And it wasn't what I expected. I mean, you see things on TV, but when you experience it for yourself, it can be pretty terrifying. So we had to delay the shoot a day. And the remarkable thing was everything still came together. Our executive producer lost his home. There were other crew members that lost their homes, and people still showed up. So there was this tenacity and this grit of, we're going to get this done. Harrison was displaced. He had to go from his home to a hotel. And everyone felt like we need to do this, and it's the right thing for everyone to kind of get their minds off of what's happening, but also be a part of impeccable creative. And so very thankful. No one obviously was hurt or any of those things, but I've never experienced anything like that in my career. But just to see, how everything came together, and hats off to, first responders and the firefighters that really helped get everything under control. But it was heartbreaking to witness, but also very, very grateful to have people that still felt like they wanted to go the extra mile to make this happen for our brand and allow us to show up.
Yeah, great call out. That's an example of the heroes behind the scene, the unsung heroes behind the scene, and so many people that have to come together to make it all come together just for what seems like a very quick ad for most people watching in the middle of snacks on Super Bowl Sunday. Thanks for sharing that. Let's throw it back to Sean now. We're going to open things up for Q&A.
All right, this is perfect. So first of all, thank you, Craig, for the awesome analysis. You're like a sideline analyst here, breaking everything down. So appreciate it. Raj, super appreciative of you and your partnership and for coming on and to tell this incredible story. I think the story behind the Jeep ad is a really, really good one. Everything from the jump ball to taking it in-house to dealing with the LA wildfires and how this all came together right before the game is incredible. So thank you for being here and sharing the story. I do want to mention to the audience, everyone that's here, everyone that registered for this will automatically get sent our full Super Bowl report. In this report, you'll see everything you saw here plus a lot more. We'll have a breakdown of literally every ad from the game. So again, creative, audience, and outcome. And this will bring us to the Q&A portion of the show. We have about 12 minutes left, so I'll kick it over to John to help us moderate this.
All right, Sean, Craig, and Raj, great show, great insights. As you would expect, we have a lot of people who've been watching and a lot of questions have come in. So why don't we jump into it? Hold on a second. I just got a note about one great one that just came in. All right, first question is for Raj. How do you anticipate measuring for success for these ads in the next 90 days and beyond? What are the things you're looking for that validate the creative success of these ads?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, iSpot, thank you for being such a wonderful partner and helping us understand the pulse of what's happening and are we resonating, and giving us some key insight as to how things are performing. We really leverage our partners at Publicis to help us pull together. We have daily reports that take us through, how is our site traffic? What's our PR story? What's the social sentiment? Really looking at our media channels. For example, we used Reddit for the first time. Someone brought up Indiana Jones. And so we were able to seed some of our campaign messaging and some of the lines on Reddit just to help steer the conversation. And so over the next 90 days, it's really more about the ecosystem and the drumbeat of developing, a clear path for our funnel. So for upper funnel, obviously, the brand moment for Super Bowl, getting out there, being disruptive, having people talk about both Jeep and Ram. And then we'll leverage the next period of time on more of that mid funnel in the consideration. And, for each ad, we have different cut downs and different versions of what we're trying to accomplish. So, for example, with Ram, we have very specific product messaging that we have for our cut downs that we're using in more direct line of sight for certain areas that we know we need to call some attention for. So we're highlighting our torque. We're highlighting some of the vehicle features and technologies. We're highlighting performance. For Jeep, it was more about the powertrain and some performance. But again, as I mentioned, this one is more of a brand moment. So we'll be highlighting the vehicles at very specific times and ways, but it's really more about giving owners a manual or their freedom of choice to learn more about Jeep overall. So we've done a complete overhaul of our Jeep.com website. We have some intentional messaging with our CRM platform, so engaging those customers. And then we're doing some conquest. So between some of our competitors, those that are, commenting or learning more or engaging our website. So for Jeep, on the day of Super Bowl, 76% of the people that came to our website were all new to the brand. So we'll be leveraging CRM to help continue the conversation. And then, when appropriate, we'll be using offers and, really trying to go deeper there. So, as we spend time, we'll continue to refine some of those different elements, not letting anything wear out. We have several versions of cut downs and different messaging that we'll be trying to accomplish across both brands. And as we continue to do things, we will get better and just make sure that we continue to, make sure that it's something that we can all be proud of. So open to mistakes if we need to shift, if some certain messaging isn't working. We're also doing some AI elements of messaging platform studies. So there is a little bit of piloting happening overall, but in general, from a campaign perspective, we do see it as 360 and holistic.
All right, excellent. The next question, like I said, we have a bunch. I want to get to as many as we can before their time runs out. Is for Sean. How is your viewership measurement methodology for Super Bowl different? And what is the role of big data? What is the role of panels?
Yeah, so our approach to measurement, it's no different during the Super Bowl. It's just our overall measurement approach is we take an ad first measurement approach, whereas the traditional measurement industry typically measures the programs first, and then sort of the ads become kind of this afterthought that gets layered on. So unique and important to our approach is leveraging big data. We also lead with smart TVs as the forefront, even though we have set-top box data and panels as well. We lead with a smart TV. We lead with the ad and verifying that the ad was played. The smart TV first approach allows us to uniquely see linear and streaming environments, and also just allows us to connect into the digital ecosystem much easier. And then, of course, we have supplementing all of that. We also have set-top box data as well as a panel that allows us to see how many people are in front of the TV. So I could spend hours on this, but I won't. That's kind of like at a very high level.
All right. Thanks, Sean. Next question is for Craig. Craig, you mentioned the emo wheel before, which I think is a great band name if you ever want to get together and form a band. But the question is, how do you measure emotions in the ACE survey, and what other emotional trends have you seen in the Super Bowl besides the shift to safe humor?
Yeah, good call, John. So we do talk a lot about emos. So it's probably helpful to just take a step back and define how we collect these scores and quantify emotions. So the way it works is I watch all the ads and decide which ones are funny. No, I'm just kidding. That's not how it works at all. We have an open-ended verbatim question in the survey, and the question is tantalizingly simple. It is, the advertiser wants to know how you feel about this ad. Please type your thoughts and feelings behind your ratings here. It's an optional open-ended question, the way we want it to be. We want respondents to feel strongly enough about an opinion to not be forced to type something into that open-ended box. So we get actually close to a 90% fill rate in the open-ended verbatim. So we got a lot of great data. So we send a survey flight out and pick up 500 respondents. We might get upwards of 450 verbatims to work with per ad. And mind you, like I said earlier, we test 12,000 ads a year publicly. So we've got a very rich repository of verbatims to harvest insights from. And we do NLP on the verbatims and classify responses based on how people respond to that survey question. And it's not just funny, it's not just heartfelt, it's not just powerful. There were 57 emotions around that emo wheel. So we can really get into positive emos, negative emos, neutral reactions, and so forth. So it's really an important tool to help advertisers optimize their creative.
All right, great. And the next question is, you mentioned CTV before, Sean, but with the rise of YouTube TV, is there tracking for other streaming platforms like YouTube TV?
Yes. So the short answer is YouTube is included in the audience numbers that we reported. And again, our smart TV tracking allows us to also track YouTube TV as a source. And so that was included in the streaming portion. I know we only had the Tubi logo up, but that did also include YouTube TV.
Great. Another quick question. How does iSpot measure out of home?
For out of home, again, real briefly, we own an app called Tunity. It's the most popular app that gets used out of the home to hear any TV that's out of the home. So this app gives us unique insight at scale in terms of what people are watching out of home or where they're at, whether they're at bars and restaurants, along with lots of surveys we deploy to understand the universe of out-of-home viewership. So those two things calibrated together make up our out-of-home measurement.
All right, great. Let's see. So many questions, so little time. It's hard to keep track of all of them. Next one. Raj, question for Raj. How do you measure and track the outcomes?
Yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned earlier, we use Publicis, as our agency of record that helps us with our data and our analytics. And so ad meter for viewership and breakthrough, number of views. So we use iSpot as well to give us some indication of, how things are, measuring and tracking. We have a global PR team that helps us understand our reach, our tonality. When we look at our site traffic, that's something that we do internally. So, as I mentioned, our site traffic for Jeep was significant, 76%, new to our site. For Ram, I think we had a 205% lift. So those are just things that we look at to just make sure that, the traffic and engagement is getting there. When we get to more of that mid funnel, we actually start looking at, engagement with our sales. Did this lift anything for Ram, over the course of the campaign? Did we change opinion, of the brands? That's huge. Right now, there's been a lot of change that we've had at Stellantis that has caused not as positive news or positive sentiment for us as a brand. So this was a way of us showing that we're here, we're American, we're here to stay. We look at how our paid media is delivering. So we have something called real-time impact. And, what happens when the spots are actually running and when the content is being seen, are we delivering upon, the number of visits that we need? How are we tracking with our social sentiment? How are we tracking again with our site traffic? Are people building and pricing? Are they going lower down the funnel? And we can always tell when, there's more of a defection. So they're coming to the site and not doing anything else. And so many times we try to figure out, well, what's happening? Is there something that we need to do to follow up? Even capturing leads. So if they're new to the site and, we understand that they're, in the market for a vehicle, how are we tracking those individuals and making sure that dealers are aware that you have these hand raisers, you have these people in market that are potentially ready to make a purchase. So we know that car buying is typically something that takes, more time than not. Some people take up to 90 days to make decisions. And so we want to be a part of that conversation. That's why we're shifting from the more exciting messaging to more of the features and options and really getting into why Ram or why Jeep and continuing, the engagement with our customers across all facets of the funnel.
All right, and we have time for one more question. I think as Sean said before we came live on the air, it's less than 48 hours since the Super Bowl. We're already looking toward the next one, right? It's like, what comes next? That's what this business is all about. So what results from this year's, the next question is, what results, Raj, for you, what results from this year's Super Bowl ads, if any, will help you lobby for a Super Bowl spot next year?
Super Bowl is an interesting thing because I have to deliver a 360 plan. I have to deliver our KPIs. Ad meter, did we win Super Bowl? Did we do a great job? Was it epic? That sets the stage for next year. If it's a flop, then no. So myself and Olivier and, the rest of the team, the brand CEOs, typically, around upfronts, we start deciding, well, what's the key thing that we need to communicate potentially in January? Do we have a story? How would we want to show up? So we make the buy quite a bit ahead of time, and then we determine, from there, what do we need to be successful? We actually started off with only 2 minutes, and we ended up with 3. Once we got on set with Harrison, we're like, this is not a 1-minute spot. We need 2 minutes. And we went back and bought the second minute. So that's just to show you, there's art and science to it. There's going to be data, but then there's the human artistic thing that we know, if we want to be considered, if we want people to talk about us, Super Bowl is a great place to do that.
All right, great. Well, looking forward to what happens in the next year from both you and obviously our friends at iSpot. You mentioned AI, so you won that part of the bingo, the advertising bingo. Looking forward to what you do there. Just a reminder to everybody before we depart, as Sean mentioned before, by attending today's event, you'll receive a complimentary access to iSpot Super Bowl 59, Super Bowl's VIP Ad Center and Super Bowl 59 report. Details are forthcoming, so please be sure to check your inboxes. In addition, you can also view and listen to this presentation on demand using the same link you used to attend today. You'll receive an email as soon as our archive is ready. On behalf of our guests, Sean, Craig, and Raj, thank you for attending Ad Age's Custom Webcast, sponsored by iSpot. I'm John Dioso for Attitude 30. See you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.